I've just read an article in the Spectator, which of course comes out of Australia. It's the Spectator Australia, and this is the 24th of January 2026 edition. And by giving due credit to the author of this particular article, Antisemitism in Australia, I hope I'm okay in reading excerpts from her one-page article, which I think needs to be said. And if you're an anti-Semite, then you might as well turn this off now and not listen to it. But Eddie Boas is the author of I'm Not a Victim, I'm a Survivor, and the producer of the award-winning Reflections of Courage. Now, she'd written, and the Spectator does have guest columnists, if you want to call it that, or contributors each time it comes out. So I don't know that Eddie is someone who publishes in this magazine regularly, but potentially, perhaps so. But I'm just going to pull bits out of this which convey the message that I want to give to you, that there is a festering problem in Australia at the moment, and I'm sure a lot of Australians are aware of it, but there are probably enormous numbers of anti-Semites, Jew haters in Australia. Let me say at the outset that I am not Jewish, and I have no real connection to the Jewish people or the Israelis, but I do recognize injustice and hatred when I see it. And I find it absolutely abominable, despicable, that people in this day and age, 2026, can behave the way that they do. In any case, just to pull bits at random out of this article, and I will be reading this, so please bear with me while I do that, and I hope you can hear clearly enough. There's planes and all sorts of things going overhead. Hopefully they're not surveilling me. And yes, it is Coke, but it's 0 sugar and 0 caffeine. I know some of you will condemn me for going anywhere near that brand, but however, this is what Eddie has to say, and as I say, I've picked bits and pieces out. Albanese and his government have blood on their hands. A week after the murder of 15 Australians, majority Jewish, by 2 radical Muslim extremists at Bondi Beach, Albanese had still not adequately addressed the Jewish community about his failure to protect them. Today there are nearly 1 million Muslims in Australia. In New South Wales, we have a political group, the Muslim Vote. There are 5 electorates where the Muslim population is large enough to exert significant electoral influence. This versus approximately 117,000 Jews who do not exert significant electoral influence in a single seat. On October the 7th, 2023, Palestinians led by Hamas terrorists invaded Israel in their thousands and raped, mutilated and murdered 1,200 people, mostly Israeli civilians, including Israeli Muslims. They took some 250 Israelis hostage, many of whom were non-Jews. That same night, an imam led crowds of Muslims in Western Sydney who celebrated the massacre. On the 9th of October, pro-Palestinians marched to the Opera House shouting obscenities at Jews, lit flares and shouted "gas the Jews" and "fuck the Jews," while police watched. What a terrible, terrible indictment on New South Wales and Australia in general. Where's the outrage? I know there is some, but it just defies logic, to use that term I use quite a bit. Going back to Albanese, something that not everybody knows, and obviously the mainstream media sees fit not to publicise. So you have to look to fringe organisations, media outlets and magazines like The Spectator Australia to glean information that is relevant in so many ways. Early in his parliament, and I'm quoting again from this article, early in his parliamentary career, Albanese met Yasser Arafat in October 2000. A video shows him addressing an anti-Israel rally that coincided with the rejection by Arafat at Camp David of an Israeli peace deal offering 96% of the West Bank, all of Gaza and joint control over East Jerusalem. Instead, Arafat unleashed the Second Intifada, a campaign of suicide bombings, shootings and stabbings targeting Israeli civilians that killed around 1,000 people. Now, if you Google Clinton, Bill Clinton, this was during his presidency, and he had been very instrumental in putting that deal together, and I think he was incensed that Arafat refused to take it. Just reflect on those numbers again. Offering 96% of the West Bank, all of Gaza, and joint control over East Jerusalem, and he rejected it. Now that says so much. That is so telling that peace and a two-state solution has never been on the agenda for the Palestinians. Forget Hamas, they're another thing altogether, a terrorist organisation, but the Palestinian people in 2000, 26 years ago, rejected an offer to move this matter forward. In any case, in 2024-25, which is 12 months, 2 years ago, Albanese's government brought 3,000 Palestinian Gazans to Australia, people who would have been taught as young people in schools and as they grew up to hate Jews. One of the highest intakes of any country, the 3,000. No Arab country, including Egypt, think of that, including Egypt, which shares a border with Gaza, has allowed Palestinians to settle in their country for fear that Hamas, the Gazan chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood, will try to bring down their governments. They know that that is the agenda. They know that that is a consequence of doing this. And yet you've got fools, oafs, buffoons, numbskulls, half-wits, bird brains like Albanese, indoctrinated nitwits who go against seriously considered opinion. It's in his DNA, isn't it? The ABC, that so-called bastion of mainstream media, which has now a very, very bad reputation nationally in Australia and internationally. It's held in very, very low regard. A bit like CNN and the BBC. They're all the same. The ABC has covered the Israel-Hamas war as a one-sided supporter of Hamas. It did not once denounce the anti-Semitism in Sydney and Melbourne. Laura Tingle claims the murder of 15 Jewish Australians, including a 10-year-old Jewish schoolgirl, by Islamist terrorists had nothing to do with religion. Shame on her. You just have to wonder where this is all going, where it's leading. And I mean, there's been a lot of debate about the influx of Islamists, aside from Muslim people, but let's talk about Islamists, the extreme edge of the Muslims, into Australia. And we know that there are 1 million now. Before too long that will be 2, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16. The long-term agenda, you can be very clear, I think, whichever side of the fence you sit. The long-term agenda is to take over the country without firing a shot, because you get into local body politics, you get into councils and local authorities, and then you go into state parliament and then federal parliament, and before you know it, potentially in 10, 20, 30 years, who knows, it could be a Muslim country. Islam could be the predominant religion, and inherently one might say there's nothing wrong with that because societies evolve and change. But if you know something about the behaviour of Islam and its adherents, and you look at the Quran, which has some lovely, beautiful words, but also the odd line here and there, which signals disastrous consequences for non-believers and people who may have offended against Islam. It's not a religion of peace as a consequence. It's a religion of destruction. It's a religion that we should all be very, very, very concerned about. That's all I have to say on it today.